Hello again, I'm Jeff Tumlin, your Director of Transportation. Thank you for everything that you're doing, keeping essential workers moving during this global pandemic. This global health crisis, however, is quickly becoming an economic crisis, affecting countries around the world and us here at SFMTA. Nevertheless, we still need to submit a 2-year budget, which goes to our Board of Directors on April 21st. I'm here to provide a summary of the efforts that we've been up to, but for more detail, you can go to our website at sfmta.com/budget. You'll recall that back in January, we started our conversation with the budget about dealing with issues like closing our structural deficit and implementing the recommendations of the Muni Reliability Working Group. But now we're in a very different situation. We're fortunate, however, that the work that we did over the last couple of months was focused on a recognition that there is no more powerful statement of any organization's values than its budget. We began our budget process with clarity about values, and that sort of clarity is important for making critical decisions about how to spend your limited resources. And that clarity is even more important in an era of shrinking resources than it is in an era of growing resources. So right now, we are laser focused on preserving our workforce so that all of you can continue to deliver essential transportation services to San Francisco, set us up for a recovery, and continue to serve our most vulnerable populations. And in order to do this, we're going to have to make some really tough choices. The next couple of months are going to be a period of focus on trade-offs. So let's talk about how we're addressing our shrinking reality. Now, you'll know that most of the sources of revenue that the MTA gets are suffering right now. Parking fees and fines, transit fares, these represent nearly 50% of our budget, and they're down by 70 to 95%. Another 30% of our budget comes from the city's general fund, which is also suffering as a result of losses to hotel tax, to sales tax, to business taxes. And so given these facts, we've been having to be pretty clear about what our priorities are, like preserving the most critical parts of the transportation system, like the essential Muni network, preserving all of our existing jobs, because we'll need those for recovery, and of course, supporting and really being prepared to support San Francisco in a quick recovery. This is something that San Francisco has done before. There is a good reason why there is a phoenix in the city's flag. So the first thing that we're doing is taking immediate steps to cut costs. We've eliminated most non-essential overtime. We've dramatically scaled back on the purchasing of goods and services and contracting. And we're slowing down hiring, not to a complete stop, but pretty much so. We still, though, however, need to have a budget for moving forward. And while we can be fairly certain that the revenue numbers that we're predicting are uncertain, we still need a starting place for making decisions about what to fund and what to cut. And so that's what our new budget is based around. We're very grateful that we have two remarkable sources of funding to help get us through. One of them is the federal stimulus funds, which is bringing a good deal of operating support here to the Bay Area, thanks to lobbying by many people and a lot of help from Speaker Pelosi's office. This will enable the SFMTA to close the current fiscal year through June without having to lay off workers. This is very important to us, and it, however, does not mean that we're through the woods, because while we're able to close our $200 million loss this quarter, we need to make sure that we're saving some of that stimulus money for the coming quarters, because next quarter is likely not going to be great either. And we don't know when San Francisco will get back to the kind of economic times that it was having a quarter ago. So we're also fortunate that thanks to the economic expansion of the last couple of years and really, really good fiscal management by our budget team and by my predecessors, that we also have a rainy day fund. This we're going to be increasingly reliant upon in order to save jobs because it's now raining. And so we're going to start spending that down. But again, we also want to make sure that it lasts. In all likelihood, we're entering a period of global recession. We don't know how many years, how much time that's going to take up before we get to full recovery. So again, we're working to be conservative, making very cautious investments to make sure that we're able to maintain the stability of this agency. This also means that we're going to have to continue controlling costs. We're developing a budget that is fairly optimistic about economic recovery in San Francisco, but we're going to have to track our revenues carefully and make sure that we do not spend more than we bring in. However, even as we're controlling costs and scaling back on new hiring and allowing the agency to shrink a bit through attrition and retirements, we also want to make sure that we continue to hire in mission critical parts of the organization as recommended by the Muni Reliability Working Group. Like in HR and like our many, many highly specialized skills where we have an aging, extremely talented workforce, and we want to make sure that those folks pass their knowledge down to a younger generation before they retire. And so the other thing that we're finally thinking about is how we set the city up for a rapid recovery. As Winston Churchill once very wisely said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And so we're thinking about all the things that we can do during this period of crisis in order to set the agency and the city up to be better than they ever were before. And so in the short term, that means developing shovel-ready projects so that we can be ready to receive federal and state capital stimulus money. It means making sure that the stimulus packages have quick build projects as eligible. Our quick build projects, as you know, are done almost entirely in-house by our in-house planners and engineers and by our in-house and by DPW's construction and maintenance crews. This is a fantastic way of taking capital money and converting it into operating money in order to save jobs. We're also looking very carefully at what we can do in this period of dramatically reduced transit service. So we started quietly doing a lot of deferred maintenance projects. As the shelter-in-place order starts to get lifted, we'll be able to do significantly more. So we're asking questions like, should we keep the rail system shut down a little bit longer than we strictly need to in order to catch up on some significant deferred maintenance projects? Can we take advantage of the fact that automobile traffic is going to continue to be low for a while and rapidly accelerate some of our quick build muni, bike, and pedestrian safety projects? This work is all going on quietly, mostly by people who are working at home. And it's also helping us to think about, for example, now that we've cut Muni back to its 17 most essential routes, do we bring the system back exactly as it was before, or do we use the treasure trove of data that we're collecting during this time in order to be smarter about how we bring the transit service back? So all of this is also making us think about the culture change that's happening in the organization right now. The fact that the crisis is requiring that we communicate more rapidly up and down the hierarchies that previously existed and across silos. The level of collaboration and communication that we're seeing here is extraordinary. We're making rapid decisions and making good ones and sharing those decisions, including our failures, with each other so that we all can learn. I'm hoping that this period of crisis will not only allow us to make the transportation system better for all San Franciscans, but also permanently change the culture of this agency, making us more deeply rooted in our values, making it clear that we need to make rapid decisions, allocating limited resources in order to best serve San Franciscans, but most importantly, taking good care of each other. Developing a culture that is welcoming and inclusive and collaborative and creative. I've never seen so much collaboration, creativity, and lack of siloing in these last weeks than I've seen now. It's beautiful to see, and I hope that we continue. I'm looking forward to having many months of of good work with all of you as we help to build San Francisco towards its recovery. Thank you so much.